Whether you're a chauffeur, a CEO, or just enjoy large and lavish sedans, the BMW 7 Series is undeniably amongst several land yacht offerings that you'd be considering. And here in the 740i form, this is absolutely and most definitely the most affordable way to get into a BMW 7 Series. This is a 2022 BMW 740i, and it sits at the bottom of the 7 Series range below the hybridized 745e, the V8 powered 750i, the Alpina modified B7, and the V12 beast, the M760i. It's a lot of models. That means that it starts at $86,800 in this rear-wheel drive form, and it's actually the only 7 Series, at least here in the States, that you can still buy in rear-wheel drive. All the other models I just mentioned only come in xDrive all-wheel drive. And as equipped, this particular example is just shy of $95,000. And while that's certainly not cheap, it's actually a pretty good value for this level of vehicle, especially when you consider all that comes standard and the fact that this particular car does have a couple of nice added extras. Now later in the video, I'll explain maybe the couple other options I would still tick onto this car to really round out a perfect, affordable 7 Series, if you will. But this is a pretty good baseline of affordable luxury at the top level of luxury. So speaking of options, this car does have the $3,400 M Sport package, which we'll dive into the details of a little bit later, but it really does make the car look a bit more aggressive. It also has blacked out 20-inch wheels for $1,300, which I really like. And it has the premium pack, which consists of a head-up display, rear sunshades, and Napa leather for about $3,000. So the 740i is powered by the same B58 engine you'd find in my 340i or in the Mark V Super, the new M340i, so on and so forth. But it does make a bit less power in this particular application due to a more, let's say, calm tune. So it's a single twin-scroll turbo 3-liter inline-6 producing 320 horsepower and 330 pound-feet of torque, and it's mated to the ZF 8-speed transmission that many of us know and love. This base 7 Series sprints to 60 in the low 5-second range, which is certainly respectable, and actually, it never really feels quite that underpowered. It also sounds kind of good. You guys can listen here. And yeah, so besides that decent sound and decent quickness, at least I wouldn't say it's fast, but it really is quick when you need it to be. There actually is a 730i in other markets, and I've ridden in one of those in the long wheelbase form like this, and that does feel underpowered. That little 2-liter 4-cylinder that you'd find in your typical 330i's and so on, that does feel a bit underpowered in a larger vehicle like this, but this 6 seems to fit perfectly. Gesture control. But the 7 Series, at least to me, in this 40i guise, is really not meant for performance. It's meant for comfort and luxury, and it absolutely is luxurious and comfortable. So let's get it out on the road and discover more. Okay, so setting off here in the BMW 740i, and I immediately feel extremely comfortable and cozy. There's no denying that this car is absolutely massive, and even though I'm here on a windy road, it still feels decently at home, and I think that's partially due to the carbon core technology BMW has used with the 7 Series, which basically strengthens the chassis a bit and makes the car kind of feel a little bit more put together despite its massive size. And you also have standard on all 7 Series air suspension. So not only is this car able to lower itself and lift itself a little bit, I think for easy access, as if it's not already a very low and pretty easy to get into sedan, it's able to kind of iron out all the little kinks on the road. And even here, I'm actually in sport mode. I'm going to go over to comfort mode, and it really works wonders. I would say the 7 Series feels more like a magic carpet ride than it feels like a normal car, I guess. So I don't know if you guys have noticed, but I do have my little shirt tucked in here, kind of like an ascot or a scarf or something, just to really play the role of a BMW 7 Series driver, despite wearing some rapper merch underneath that. We'll ignore that. But I do feel special driving this, and the second I get into it, I've been driving it around for a couple hours, and every time I get back into the seat, I'm like, kind of feel like a boss. And I know it's a little gimmicky, but, and I, personally, it's a bit of a large car, too large for me. I still can't deny that hopping into it, you feel special. And it's not a feeling you get in any vehicle. I would say even in your nicest 5 Series or E-Class or Audi A6, you're not gonna get this feeling. Now, you're certainly gonna get more performance in some of those cars, especially if you spring for those real performance variants, but this is all about just feeling like an executive, like a boss. So full disclosure, I did drive a 2019 740i. It was actually one of the first videos I put out on this channel, so I'll link it up above, go check it out. But when I drove that car, one of the first things I noticed was that the B58 motor, the 6-cylinder, was pretty perfectly matched and suited for the pretty relaxed demeanor and docile dynamics or driving characteristics of this car. This is not a car that by nature is pushing you, and that's the way it's been engineered. It's meant to be luxurious, comfortable, relaxing, and not egg you on to drive hard or drive faster. And certain cars do. I would say even getting into a BMW 330i, there's, especially the new ones, there's just a little touch of motorsport in there. Very little, and of course many will say that BMW's lost its way, which it kind of has, but it's beginning to find it again in this new generation of cars. And when you get into, again, a 330i, the steering rack is pretty tight, and when you put the car into sport mode, it's, it gets you going. This, even in sport mode, I could just 10, 15, maybe 20% throttle, cruise, maybe one hand on the steering wheel, sit back, relax, and these seats certainly help. Now, they're extremely adjustable. You can tilt just the top portion of the seat. You can move, obviously, the entire seat. You have, because this is an M Sport, you have a cool thigh support extensions, which you find in many BMWs with sportier seats. Adjustable side bolsters, all the fun stuff you'd expect, but they really feel comfortable beyond their sportiness, which, again, they're not that sporty. The seating position, again, it's super nice. You have so much space in this car. I could probably fit behind myself right now with, you know what? I can definitely fit behind myself with extreme ease. I'm gonna show you guys, matter of fact, so check this out. You can see that there's endless room in this car, and that's because now in the US, I think since maybe 2016, the 7 Series has only been offered in the long wheelbase form, the LI form, which is what it was previously called. Now it's just called the I, but it is in fact the long wheelbase. So because the long wheelbase is the only way you can get this car, it is very rear seat dominant. There's no escaping it, and that's why I said this is great for a CEO, for an executive, whatever, but also great for a chauffeur, for a driver, because really, when you drive this car, sometimes you feel like, hey, I kind of wish I was actually sitting in the back. So the driving dynamics and relaxed nature of the car have not changed from that 2019 pre-LCI that I drove a while back. But what has changed since then is that the 7 Series has been facelifted. It was actually facelifted already by the time I did that video. So this is a facelifted LCI 7 Series. That stands for Life Cycle Impulse. And what that means is you get a decently revised front fascia, actually. So this was one of the first BMWs to introduce that larger grille, which in retrospect now looks kind of small compared to the obnoxiously large and hideous grille of the 4 Series. But yeah, so back when this came out a couple years ago, it has a massive grille in theory. I actually like it. It kind of has a Rolls-Royce style flat, large presence to it up front. But yeah, so you get the new grille. You get a very slightly revised lower front fascia, the intakes, especially on this M Sport trim. And then you get thinner and a little bit more wide and angular headlights, which I think really complement the width and style of this car, big, long, swoopy sedan. The side profile has hardly changed. You do notice that the front and rear are a bit more aggressive due to the new headlights and taillights, but aside from that, it's about the same. There may be some new wheel offerings, and you still do get the cool hockey stick, although it's not very visible with the lack of contrast black paint and the black accents of this, or the shadow line accents of this M Sport trim. On a white car like that 2019 that I drove, it stood out, and I think it's a really nice design element. It's also actually functional because there is a little vent that allows air to escape the wheel well through the front of the hockey stick. And out rear, like I mentioned, you have updated taillights that are also, again, a bit shorter and wider. They completely match the rest of the BMW design language when it comes to taillights. They have that kind of three-dimensional L look, and now they have an LED light that extends from one taillight to the other, which both looks cool and at nighttime helps the rear of this car look a bit wider and draw your attention a little bit more, both for style and safety purposes. Other than that, the back bumper, lower back bumper, is kind of the least changed area of this entire car. It looks almost identical to me to the pre-facelift. And again, because this is an M Sport package, you have that more aggressive rear valence that looks very similar to a 750, which only comes in M Sport, and even that top of the line M760, which only has different exhaust kind of trim. It's not even a real exhaust tip. The interior of the LCI 7 Series is the most improved area, which is a trend I've kind of been noticing. In a lot of cars, you might jump into a pre-facelift 2019 of a car and then a 2021 facelift and notice the biggest changes have come with the tech inside due to the rapid pace of technology right now and how it's evolving so quickly. And yeah, so when you're in the 7 Series, you notice you have the Live Cockpit Pro system that you'd find in, again, most new BMWs now. So you have the iDrive 7 system you can talk to. You could say, hey BMW, I'm sure I just got it, yep. You have gesture control where you can use your hand to raise and lower the volume, mute, dismiss calls, so on and so forth. You have a touchscreen. Beyond that, the Live Cockpit Pro gives you that virtual digital dash here. So you have a lot of nice tech, and it's sizably upgraded from that pre-LCI car. But what's also nice in this car is what you get standard, which is a large panoramic sunroof. You have shades in the front and the back, which is cool, and especially the one in the back is one of those nice little touches for rear seat passengers of a car that's so rear seat dominant. And you have controls in the back to control both shades on either side as well as that shade in the rear and the cover for the sunroof. It does feature a standard Harman Kardon audio system, which sounds pretty great. There is an optional $3,400 Bowers & Wilkins audio system, which features like ambient lighting in the speakers, and I can only imagine sounds even better. But even without it, which this car doesn't have it, you still get ambient lighting and a couple other cool little gimmicks to keep the cabin feeling both luxurious and up to date. One of my favorite lighting features in this car, and I'm almost certain it was not, definitely wasn't standard in the pre-LCI, and it is standard now, but I don't even think it was an option in the pre-LCI, are these B-pillar lights on the back side of the B-pillars meant for the rear passengers at night to kind of give you this diffused white light. It feels like something straight out of a Rolls Royce. I was riding in the back of this car last night and I thought to myself, man, these lights for some reason are making this experience that much better, that much sweeter. It's just these little touches that keep this car feeling both, again, refreshed and updated now, but just special despite its actually somewhat affordable price tag for this segment. So I guess the common theme of this video so far has been that the rear seats are kind of the place to be in this car. So on that note, let's jump into a little tall boy test and see how this car does when it comes to carrying some tall cans. So here that goes. So as I mentioned already, the driving position is pretty solid, and this M Sport steering wheel, which comes as a part of that M Sport package that otherwise gives you the cool exterior styling I mentioned, is a real bright spot here in the interior. It gives you just that little touch of motorsport to help you feel nice when you're driving this car, if you are indeed going to be driving this car. And as I've been saying over and over again, there's no denying that this car is rear heavy, meaning that there's a lot of car behind you. And it's a similar sensation of driving a large, full-size SUV, where if you're alone in the car, as I am, you might go, what's the point of all this space? Kind of like having a large home and living in it alone. Crazy. But the car, due to that carbon core and due to the suspension, when you put it into sport mode, which I will now, and you push the gear selector over into sport transmission, it wakens up. And if I give it a little gas, it takes off pretty quick. It handles decently well. It also brakes decently well. It's not that this car is obviously meant to be very sporty. It's absolutely not. But I do appreciate the fact that, especially with this M Sport trim, you can get on it a little bit, let's say if and when needed, and it can deliver. So that's where I feel like you have a balanced car, a car that is good at what it's meant to do, which is be luxurious, comfortable, so on and so forth, but it's also able to dabble in other regions and aspects of driving, and this certainly is. Of course, there's no denying I would rather have a 750. Matter of fact, I'd rather have an M760 or a B7. But when you factor in the cost, especially of the latter two, they're a lot more expensive than this car. I think the M760 starts at like $60 or something thousand more than this. The B7, $50,000 more than this. So it's a lot more money, and these are notoriously lease specials. So you can lease these for pretty competitive rates considering their price point. I think these lease for the same as M2s, for instance. So for people out there looking for a luxurious large sedan and wanting to maybe be just a bit reasonable in the sense of both actual cost as well as fuel economy, this hits a very nice little sweet spot. But as I mentioned earlier, there are a couple of options I would personally tick onto this car, and I'm going to go through those right now. So the first one is I would get the rear seat luxury package, which gives you ventilated rear seats, massaging rear seats. It gives you adjustable rear seats that are able to fold back even further than these ones and give you just a bit of extra comfort in the back. And that package also forces you to get ventilated seats up front, which this car is lacking. It does not force you to get massaging seats up front, but I'd round that package out with adding on and ticking on massaging front seats as well, because you would hate to have massaging rear seats and not massaging front seats. I would also tick on the M Sport brakes, preferably in the black color, because they give you larger rotors, slightly sportier and more aggressive brake pads. And I'm just someone who always appreciates a better brake system. It's not that these brakes are poor per se, but when you have a car that weighs over 4,200 pounds, better brakes are never unwanted. And all those options I just mentioned only add on about $5,000 to this car, bringing it up to a nice even $100,000, which still makes it a tremendous value, especially considering all of that. For a car like this, you're gonna get extremely luxurious rear seats, you get massaging function, ventilated seats, you have larger brakes in that case. It's just a really, really nice package, and you already get the basics, right? You already get soft closed doors, the air suspension I mentioned, the nice headlights. The car starts out pretty nice. The M Sport makes it a bit more aggressive, and those extra options really round it out into the perfect, affordable luxury sedan. If you're considering that, which I'm certainly not, but if you are, this would be a perfect choice. And since you guys have made it to the end of the video, I have a little random clip to throw in here. I was filming this car a little earlier, and a black 7 Series, a pre-LCI, drove by me, and it started doing this crazy, it was just going in and out of the driveway next to me 30 times. I have a clip, I'll put it in. I couldn't believe it, so enjoy that really weird clip. I had to incorporate it somehow. And other than that, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate you for watching. If you guys enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. New videos are coming out every single week. And as always, this is Rio. Peace.